Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
Several iterations of Rush that we possess been together for more than 40 years. However, I believe that the friendship issue is not a tiny portion of it. Additionally, our performance is the most assured in the rock industry, while controversies are frequently associated with names, narcotics, and dazzling stage lighting. Geddy Lee made a different decision. Using his thin frame, round glasses, and his eerie falsetto voice made him the serene spirit of one of the best rock's 20th century bands, Hurry. In a society where noise is frequently silence, Geddy Lee allowed the music speaks for itself. No controversies, no startling claims, no careless, chaotic love affairs or political tirades. Rather, he spent more than 50 years strolling steadily while holding his Fender bass, his soul spouse, and the quiet recollections of parents who made it through Auschwitz's hell. The tale of Geddy Lee didn't start in the limelight of fame, nor did it culminate in a decline from elegance. It's a boy's adventure holoced his father when he was 12, and he grew up haunted by the Holocaust's shadows, who for years was disregarded by critics, but discreetly penned a priceless chapter in rock history. Additionally, it's just so quiet, that constant serenity that makes him not to be forgotten. Childhood. Geddy Lee was born in North York on July 29, 1953, a Canadian suburb of Toronto, into a Jewish person family with imprinted memories of war deep within itself. Morris, his parents Manna Mary Rubenstein, and Weiner first connected as teenagers in a Nazi costume, not at a Dance 1939 work camp in the center of Poland during its annihilation under fascist governance. Later, both were transported to Geddy's mother's ordeal in Avitz almost 2 years prior to being moved to Belsen, Bergen. His dad was transferred, no less of a torment, to Dau. Following after the conflict, there was a refugee crisis. Camps, Morris, came upon Mary once more. They married and moved to Canada in order to begin a new life, a precarious start founded on unimaginable trauma. For Geddy Lee, my early recollections weren't replete with music, but in addition to the terrifying tales Mom told about the camps, Hitler, and survival. In contrast, his father stated almost nothing about the past. He held his quiet as though it were all that was left behind after everything was captured, and that quiet engulfed the home. Geddy was raised in the compressed memory environment where pain and love lived in the same house. When, at the age of 12, Geddy's father passed away from disease, a loss he never really recovered from. His mom had to raise just 3 kids. While other children hung out or played baseball after school, Geddy decided to be alone and tinker with vintage instruments. The music didn't emerge as a transient ardor. It was the one thing he could control was escape. He could only be by himself without being engulfed by absence and memory. Gary was his true name, but his mother's. It was always pronounced with a heavy Polish accent, as Geddy, and he was stuck with that name for eternity. A continual reminder that no matter how far you go, the past is never far. Stroll. Geddy wasn't very noteworthy at school, pupil. He struggled to fit in, disapproved of team sports, and frequently felt as though he didn't fit in anywhere. However, then, he came onto the bass guitar one day. It wasn't as ostentatious as the lead guitar. The drums were louder than this, but it was the basis of each song. Additionally, in that, Geddy found himself in a quiet role. When he chose to leave school in order to pursue music with Rush, a new band, his mom was heartbroken. Following everything, she had endured widowhood, loss, and battle. All she wanted was for her son to have a solid, secure life. Geddy, however, didn't want security. He desired to live alone. Phrases. Honestly, whether it's correct or incorrect. Years later, Rush turned into Hornound, Mary was present at SAT through all of her son's performances, backstage in silence, feeling pleased and no longer disagreed. Since maybe in Geddy's, she recognized the sound of music. A survival without being ostentatious or noisy, but ferociously resilient. Early career. In 1968, at the age of 15, Geddy Lee's Alex Lifson, a close friend, invited him to join a local band that was having trouble, simply lost its foundation. Geddy agreed, almost without realizing it that this request would lead to a lifetime adventure. The band was named Hurry. Rush had nothing at the time but a couple of Cream and Lead and Dreams covers by Zeppelin. Their initial performances took location in high schools and coffee places, theaters, and neighborhood dance clubs, lacking stage lights in the Toronto area, without compensation, and with very few people in the audience listening. However, Geddy Lee was unique. Despite performing, he performed for only a few dozen people, like he was in front of thousands of people. His bass became into an addition of his body, and his piercing, high-pitched voice, occasionally confusing, turned into his distinctive signature. Although the majority of bass during that time players kept to basic keeping time, Geddy created separate melodic lines that entangled with the intricate structures of progressive rock, which is uncommon at the time. Rush's recording of their debut album of the same name in Geddy continued to work part-time in 1974 at a record store. The initial pressing of, although Rush only made 3,500 copies, they swiftly sold out during a Cleveland working man was unexpectedly played by the DJ on the radio. The audience believed it was a band called Black Sabbath, unidentified, unrepresented, and from Canadason's Tricks. That discovery resulted into a Mercury Records contract. However, for success was never easy, Geddy. He had to sing throughout his early years while using foot pedals and playing bass, even setting off keyboards simultaneously, concurrently. He transformed performances into technical achievements, not to be ostentatious but only because nobody else was able to for him. But the media were unrelenting. His voice was ridiculed by critics, referring to it as a dog's howl or falsetto in a marsh, and disregarded the music of Russia as being too intricate for radio. However, Geddy never answered. He remained the same. Indeed, to his life as he had always chosen, he'll let the music do the talking. Additionally, in 1976, music really started to speak with the publication of untold, a declaration of defiance against creative control that was written in reaction to tolerable pressure. Geddy shouted in it, in the same mocking tone, "We are the priesthood," of Syrinx temples, enraged and uncompromising. The album wasn't only prevented Rush from breaking up, but further solidified Geddy's standing among artists who resisted giving in to market pressure anticipations. From a high school, Geddy Lee, a dropout, took over as creative Rush's soul, not only for his unique bass performance but for his steadfast attitude, tough, modest, and never compromising his true being. Professional achievement. When the record was made in 1976, Rush was asked by the label to make their music simpler. In order to increase its marketability, Geddy Lee and his fellow musicians took the opposite action. They released 112, a 20-minute concept album epic that tells a bleak tale on side a tale about a day in the future when music is prohibited by a theocratic government. Geddy's, with a sharp voice, take care of everything. It wasn't merely the market's challenge. It was a proclamation of survival, either creative liberty or nothing. What 12 went above and beyond expectations, went Canada's platinum, and cleared the path Rush's ascent well above their home country, welcoming a nearly too golden era, lengthy and decadent. Once Geddy ridiculed for having a siren-like voice, was as acknowledged as a defining voice of progressive rock that is unique, bold, and impossible to mistake for another person. Over the following few years, Rush published a number of technically intricate, conceptually dense records: A Hemispheres, Farewell to Kings, 1977, Permanent Waves, 1980, 1978. However, Moving Pictures, 1981, they strengthened their standing as one of the best rock bands in the world. The tune Geddy co-wrote Tom Sawyer, who became a worldwide success. It had a complicated construction, but appealing enough to dominate the airwave stations that used to turn them away. By Geddy Lee then gave a performance akin to singing, playing, and multitasking machine-using foot pedals and a bass to activate keyboards at the same time. He hardly ever took the stage, seldom spoke to the audience, but he played a note that underpinned Rush's whole sound. He didn't have to give orders, pay attention. He was the one sustaining gravity, all of it at once. As time went on, Rush became increasingly creative. In the 1980s, they included synthesizers, which generated debate among ardent supporters. However, Geddy was fascinated. He didn't play to win over anyone. He played to test limits. Records such as Divided are Signals and Grace Under Pressure. Initially as listeners, but now were regarded as courageous and progressive, not functions. Despite a sizable and loyal fan base, Rush was yet ignored by the Americans' critics. Rolling Stone declined to showcase them on its cover for several years, rejecting their music because it's too clinical, and Geddy sounded like a dog barking via a drainpipe. However, Rush never fired back. The press was not courted by them, never employed image consultants, and created headlines with shock value. And, oddly enough, that lack of concern enabled them to surpass all others you anticipated. Early in the 1990s, Rush had sold more than 25 million albums in the United States, obtained 14 platinum records and 24 gold records, albums, and came in third place in the history of rock for the longest run of gold or platinum, just the Beatles and the Beatles album's Rolling Stones. It wasn't only about athletics. It was a silent exchange. Between the past and the present, between thankfulness and heritage. Regarding faith, according to Geddy Lee, being an atheist Jew, he holds a high regard for his background, and perception of community, but fails to pay attention religious rites. Once, when questioned about faith in a hereafter, he merely grinned. "I don't know what's waiting," he said. "On the opposite side, although I think kindness, whether directed at individuals or traces left by music, and that's sufficient noise." Geddy Lee hashed out a life that was incredibly significant, just as he has navigated the tumultuous world of rock for more than 50 years, unwavering, silent, and always on course. Influence and legacy. A few artists are known for just one popular song, others for arenas that are completely booked. However, for Geddy Lee, legacy is not found in a single moment. It's in the way he reinterpreted what being an artist is more than just 50 years. In the bassist's role, long considered by many to be just, Geddy Lee provided help, turning it into independent art form. He didn't simply observe the time. He composed tunes, spoke with the drums, oversaw the flow of emotions while taking the lead, the soul, the keyboard player, and the singer of the platform. When bass was first frequently overpowered by guitars, and Geddy's synthetic drums pushed it to the leading edge in terms of technique, creativity, and silent resolve. This is how many young artists see him as an example. Cliff Burton Dream Theater, John Mong, Metallica, Les Claypool, Steve Harris, Iron Maiden, Primus. Everyone has mentioned Geddy as a pioneer, someone who demonstrated that bass is the basis, not the background. In addition to his skill, he left an equally uncommon mark in his lifestyle and went to his craft. Geddy Lee never changed to fit the market. He failed to add hits to the chase chart. Success, eschewed musical trends, did not join supergroups in order to get notoriety, and maybe that's why his songs endures. It is not indicative of a trend, but a soul. Alongside Rush and Alex Neil Peart and Lifeson, he co-created what may be referred to be a Canadian fashion rock that is progressive, enhanced, profoundly human, philosophical, but never becoming less accessible. Compared to King, their music was less scholarly, not as ostentatious as Yes or Crimson Genesis. It was subtly relatable, humorous, and conveyed a sense of working class. Intelligence that made it possible for it to locate millions of admirers worldwide themselves in each and every, take note. When Rush was eventually admitted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not with fame, they took the stage. With a silent sigh of relief, but with pride. Famously, Alex Leon gave a speech, including a single phrase that is repeated repeatedly and over, drawing laughter, blah blah blah, from the spectators. Geddy merely stated, as though he had never anticipated it, "Thank you" acknowledgement to characterize him. However, Geddy Lee's impact goes well beyond music. In writing, his autobiography, My Finn Life 2023, emerged as a noteworthy piece, not a lap of glory, but a record of suffering, sorrow, insomnia, and the reasons why he persisted. When gathering, he dazzled everyone with his bass, Data guitars, nice wine, old timepieces, and baseball souvenirs. Every item is carefully chosen to resemble an artwork, conveying the idea that beauty is not found in cost, but in sentiment and history. Community. Service. He has played a crucial support of initiatives for the research on brain cancer that is underfunded, and conserving the heritage of Black athletes, not to make a statement, but of appreciation for life in general. By 2025, Geddy Lee, 72, is still welcome to events involving music and culture, book discussions, and displays. He is still there, he just moved out of the way of the highlight, glowing in a new manner. Geddy Lee's voice might not be audible to you. Every day, however, if you've ever heard Tom Sawyer, did you ever follow that remarkable bass line in YYZ? Or have you ever observed "And a silent artist stands in the middle of a"? You've previously met him. Wide stage. Current existence. Geddy Lee, 72, is no longer stands with a bass draped over his head on stage, his shoulder, or gives orders for a variety of using his feet to operate keyboards. However, that does not imply that he has ceased. It simply indicates that rather than playing music prior to hundreds, he now decides to disclose tales about memory, existence, and the things that music was never able to properly convey. Geddy published his autobiography, My Effing Life, a book that doesn't glorify celebrity, but exposes the pieces of a soul that has lost his dad when he was 12 years old, saw his best friend's death, and was once the center of attention, felt totally isolated. He composes regarding his mother, an Auschwitz survivor, as a silent hero, and regarding his dad as a void that never been filled. The book became an immediate bestseller and made it to the top of the new knot due to the media. The York Times list excitement, yet because to its eerie sincerity. January 27th, to mark the 80th anniversary, 2025, of the death camp's liberation, Geddy participated in a unique occasion at University of Queens in Charlotte, North Carolina. In a tiny theater, he didn't mention Rush. He discussed the Holocaust, regarding how the recollection of genocide is not merely a thing of the past, but endures in every deed of compassion, each tale repeated. In a world that is expanding, Geddy Lee, more split with all his humility, has emerged as a protector of collective memory. Additionally, in 2025, he published 72 Stories, a new book, an assemblage of thoughts centered on his unique baseball collectibles. It's not a showcase catalog. Belongings, but a form of memoirs through things. Baseballs that have been signed by Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, and 3 U.S. Presidents Truman, Kennedy, and Roosevelt. Every object turns into a piece of history, a human lesson, and a recollection he decided to distribute. In honor of Record Store Day, Geddy published a special vinyl in 2025, the Lost Demos, which includes 2 The My Favorite Headache Records periods that were previously dismissed as being too individual. He arranged a signing party in Toronto, wore a basic button-down shirt with the same recognizable grin. No gates, no fanfare, no bodyguards. When a fan said, "Are you planning to come back to the platform?" Geddy merely grinned and, "I don't think I need to," I said. "No longer. I experienced it, and now I write." Aside from his creative pursuits, Geddy continues to reside at his ancient house in the Rosedale district of Toronto. He devotes time to caring for his wine vendor of more than 5,000 bottles, writing, reading, playing music with Alex, and watching sports news, just to keep in mind, listen once a month, that there is still music. No viewership, no recordings, only 4 for the buddy they lost, for themselves, and in honor of a memory that will endure forever. Geddy, there is no stage in Lee's current life, yet it still has plenty of rhythm. He's no longer a rock star. He tells stories, a history buff and a reserved custodian of kindness, continuing to spread it. Geddy Lee had no intention of becoming a myth. He didn't take the stage to demonstrate one point, didn't win by playing music, didn't write books just to get attention, and that's exactly why he became one. Among the most well-known artists, not only in stone, but in people's hearts, continue to think that stability, quiet kindness, and respect have a role in this planet. From a youngster brought up in the Holocaust's shadow, losing his father of an artist who headed Rush at the age of 12 to heights in the world without ever losing. Geddy Lee decided to live a life that fanfare-free, but never without life depth. He placed intricate music feeling. In Silent Works, he described recollections that few ventured to share. Additionally, in every tiny action, from assisting the brain from baseball donation to cancer research contributions to museums, he left a trail that is silent, persistent, but unavoidable. He was never a classic icon. However, if you've ever heard the nighttime echo of Tom Sawyer, ever observed a performer without having to? Have you ever read a line while observing the audience? From a memoir that caused you to stop and think insolent than you could already be aware of? Why didn't the man preach without? An entire generation is still made up of shouting. Pay attention. Geddy Lee doesn't have to come back to be remembered. On stage because it never truly went away. I appreciate you observing. I'll see you in the upcoming video.